This is William K. Murt, Murt Witness 1, and welcome to Murt on the Trail. This is a new way that I'm going to attempt to do the mobile-thons for a while. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing an audio-visual where instead of just having a slide up of my logo, so to speak, I'm going to start doing the video of my daily drive to the airport, or most of it anyway. And the Murt on the Trail title actually goes to show where I am at the moment. And where I am at is on the Orange Blossom Trail. Now, the first thing we see when we're on the trail is we have an accident, which normally happens every once in a while. This is a bad enough one that they've closed down the entire road, so we're going to make a little bit of a detour here. This is a very heavily traveled road, and as a result, people are generally a little bit careless, and that looks like what's happened. We had a Camaro, looks like it got hit, so we have to divert a little bit to get around this mess. And as usual this morning, people decide that they want to get someplace faster than anybody else and cut me off. But, you know, you learn to live with things. Now, this is a little bit of the old Apopka we're going through right now as we make this detour. And it's going to be kind of different, beginning to a different format in a different way as we meander the streets of Apopka to get around this bottleneck that I just got stuck with. I usually leave for the airport early enough to avoid delays like this, because it's always the case, if not here, elsewhere, there is a delay of one sort or another, usually heavy traffic or, like we just saw, an accident. And now we go through a delay. And what this does is this gives you a look at what Florida is like today. We're already climbing up into the 70s, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, I think this is where we can start to make another turn and get back on track. Now, as I mentioned on my comment section of my YouTube page, I am going to gradually start getting away from politics. And I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to be talking about on these little runs to the airport. I may not do this every day if I simply don't have anything to talk about. I'm going to try and find things to talk about. There's a lot going on in the world besides politics. So I try to cover that. All right, we are now back on the trail. If anybody is tuned into YouTube and they look up Orlando, you usually see people driving around the streets of Orlando. A lot of people have done it, and then they put them up on the YouTube so people can get an understanding of what it's like in this part of the state. And that's basically what I'm going to be doing here. At the very least, for those people that are willing to listen to me for the duration, they've got something to look at besides an airplane wing for 40 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, however long it takes for me to get to the airport. So we shall see how that goes. Now, there are going to be times when I cut the video off before I get to the airport, or just as I get to the airport. It's just a question of when I feel it's time to, shut up, so to speak. So there will be that. Now, I'm hoping this goes off without too many technical difficulties. I hope the audio's working, and so on and so forth. Because if the audio did not work, it will be the reason you did not see a video today or a mobile-thon today. Because this is basically a test day. And I will be refining things. The introduction won't be quite as long, and so on and so forth. If anything, this is a premiere episode, but it's also a shakedown episode to work out any bugs that I might find in the system. Hopefully the phone isn't going to overheat and shut off, which it usually does when I do these long streams. Now, I didn't do it while I was doing the Chaos project, strangely enough. I use this and the other cell phone I've got in the series. Everything was done almost entirely on a cell phone. I did use the GoPros in a couple instances, but by and large, the vast majority of the stream during that week I was up there was done with this very phone. This is my Galaxy 9, and it's got decent battery life, the whole 9 yards. The other cell phone that I use is newer. That's the other Galaxy. It's one generation newer than this one. But since I've got the software for processing the video on this phone, I use this phone. Now, I am eventually going to put the same software on the other phone. And when I do, I will be able to use either phone to do this type of streaming. This way I don't have to wait until I get to the house or to my destination to do the editing. I can do it literally on the fly, because 9 times out of 10 I'm doing the editing of the videos while waiting to take off. Because generally you get in the airplane, it's quite a bit of time before you take off. So usually I can get everything edited and uploaded onto the internet before I have to turn the thing off. Otherwise, if I'm on an aircraft that has Wi-Fi, I can go ahead and upload it in flight, which is not the best thing in the world because the Wi-Fi's on commercial aircraft are somewhat crappy. Now, on a private aircraft, it's much better. So when I am able to take advantage of that, that's when I have my best results doing an airborne upload. Now, as for weather, it's a little cloudy today. It rained this morning. Usually it rains overnight, if it rains at all. As you can see, there's still quite a few clouds up there, so there's hard to say what's going to happen, weather-wise. Florida weather changes on a dime. You'll have nice sunny hot days, then mid-afternoon, all of a sudden you get a downpour, and the sun comes out and it's sunny for the rest of the day, although it might be a little bit cooler. Now, this being a Sunday, the traffic isn't too bad, which is why I'm kind of surprised we had an accident this morning, is because the traffic just isn't there. But, one of these things where two cars got into it for whatever reason, and we wound up closing down the road. Both sides of the road, which is something of a surprise. Usually they only close down one side of the road completely, and you go around. But the fact they closed down two sides of the road means there's either been a major accident or the equipment was configured in such a way that they had blocked the entire road, so everybody had to make a detour. That's what we seem to be looking at this morning. Now, as many of you might have been able to discern, whoever follows my live stream completely, it takes me roughly 45 minutes to get to the airport. Sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's a little more, but on average it's 45 minutes. And so I usually time it so that I can get to the airport early enough to make arrangements that I generally have to make before I leave, and also to get as much of the video editing done as I can so I can get this stuff done before I leave. And so that's what I'm going to attempt to do. Oh, that's cute. The guy just blew the red light. This is some of the things you see in Florida every day. And it's also a good piece of advice when driving in Florida, if not anywhere else, is to abide by the red light +3 rule. And that is, if you're on the side with a green light, you need to make sure that 3 cars didn't shoot ahead of you through the light so you don't broadside one of them. And the guy that ran the red light just made a U-turn and went back the other way. Weird. We have some weird ass drivers in Orlando. Now, I'm gonna touch upon politics just a little bit. Like I said, it isn't going to be an instant process where I suddenly stop talking about politics and talk about other stuff, because it's going to come up from time to time. We are in the middle of a political season. Biden has been declared the winner of the election. Now, there is talk that now ex-President Trump, or lame duck Trump, is going to fight. But the only winners that are likely to come out on any fight that he partakes in are the lawyers, because they're going to get paid whether they win or lose. And a lot of lawyers in the legal community, both Republican and Democrat leaning, have stated that Trump really doesn't have anything to stand on. Now, the counting as of 9:15 in the morning is not over. This is a rather interesting fact. There are other states that are finishing up. However, the chances of Trump pulling out a win from these additional states is akin to winning the lottery. He ain't going to do it. The odds are just too extreme. Now, if he does, I'll be eating a lot of crow, but I just don't see it. And, the conspiracy theorists on my channel are going ballistic in the comment section. They say, no. Trump is going to pull it off. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. And they bring up the Biden-Gore situation, but they don't understand something. Not Biden-Gore, I can mess that one up. It's the Bush-Gore election. There's two reasons Bush won that. First of all, the Supreme Court made a determination in the state of Florida that Gore had won, or that Trump had won by very, very, very few votes. It's the closest election in history. And the second factor was that Gore gave up. He said, enough is enough. I'm conceding. Bush won. Congratulations. And it wasn't that bitter of a fight either, if people would remember. Gore basically stood back and let everybody fight the battle. And in the end, it was Gore that put a stop to it. He said, look, enough is enough. Bush can have the win. He took country over party and said, for the best thing for the country is to let Bush win, and that's what happened. And this was also a mechanical problem that caused this debacle. It wasn't voter fraud or this, that, or the other thing. It was a mechanical breakdown of antiquated and old-fashioned voting machines. The punch card ballot system that Florida had been using and had problems with for quite a long time. And it finally caught up to them in the Bush-Gore election. And so when it was determined that these machines were the cause of the problem, the state of Florida threw them all out. Had a big dumpster dive as all these old-fashioned punch card machines went the way of the hand crank car. And now we've got the same kind of machines that are used to grade tests in high school being used in elections. Now, there are problems with these machines too, but the problems aren't anywhere near what caused the problem with Bush-Gore. Now, another thing that I find interesting about the Trump supporters is they seem to forget that in 2016, we had a problem with the election between Hillary and Donald. And that could have easily been contested, is to the degree that Trump seems to want to contest this cycle, because there were a lot of questions in that election. There were questions as to why Trump won based on a statistical evidence that he should have lost. And Trump did lose the popular vote, just like he lost it this time. But because of this antiquated electoral college system that we're stuck with, Trump won. And after a little grumbling, Hillary conceded graciously, and Trump took over. Yes, there were investigations because there was evidence, and still is evidence, that there was something going on that interfered with the election. Now, whether or not this affected the election directly is not entirely clear, but a lot was going on that warranted investigations, and the conclusion was at the end of the day that foreign powers interfered with our election. And Trump let him get away with it. That is the main reason that I don't support Trump, is because he did not put a stop to the interference. I don't care if he had remained in power or not after the investigations that determined that Russia was responsible and all these other countries were responsible, as long as he enforced our democracy and did something about it. He did not. In fact, there's evidence that he may have allowed the same interference this time around, because it is clear by the news that's coming out of Russia that they wanted Trump to win. Russia is not happy that Trump lost. Now bear that in mind. They don't like Biden. Russia, our enemy, doesn't like Biden. They like Trump. All these dictators, like Trump. They don't like Biden. That's weird. If Trump is supposed to be this all-American patriot that's for the Constitution and for this country, Russia should be having parties in the streets, and the fireworks should be going off and behind the Kremlin and so on, because Biden won. But that's not happening. They're pissed. They're screaming bloody murder. They're saying that Trump got cheated out of the presidency. This is the Russians, a totalitarian government, a government run by a former member of the KGB. I don't care if you support Trump or support Biden, but that's something to think about. And on the other side of the coin, the world leaders all over the place are praising the election of Biden and celebrating the loss of Trump. Again, these are foreign countries that have nothing directly to do with our election celebrating the new president. This did not happen with Trump. And so there's that. But this country, being what it is, the sore losers are going to whine, pound, and scream and do all their childish things for quite a while. But eventually this is all going to die down. Things are going to go back to some kind of normal. We got other priorities in this country than by worrying about a spoiled brat wanting to hold on to a toy that he no longer deserves, that it's time for him to get the hell out. He's being evicted from public housing. It's time to let the grown-ups return to the White House and run things. The QAnons are seeing the sunset on their power. They'll be around, kind of like a rat that avoids a trap, until eventually they die out. They'll just be they'll go back to the dark corners that they crawled out of and go over on H-on or some other obscure place, and you'll see ramblings from the conspiracy theorists now and then, but they've been thoroughly and absolutely debunked. All the numbers they put up, all the little clues they put up have amounted to absolute zero. QAnon has accomplished nothing other than they've made a joke out of the American citizenry that follow these idiots. You know, I find it interesting that there are people that are following QAnon and have no idea who this person is. He's a fandom. He's a ghost. You can't put a picture on the wall and say that's anonymous. This is the guy working inside the government doing the blue deep state stuff. I mean, they try. I mean, the guy that they said is QAnon came out and said, no, I'm not QAnon. I don't have nothing to do with these people. So that blew that theory up. And you know, it's weird. But anyway, I figure probably every once in a while I'll make a mention of something political here as I drive down the road. Mention QAnon every once in a while. You know, we've got until January 20th to argue about who's, you know, if Trump is going to pull a rabbit out of his hat and save his presidency and keep himself out of jail. Because that's why he wants the presidency so bad. He doesn't want to go to jail. Now, like it or not, there is more than sufficient evidence to put Trump in jail. You know, he's a crook. There's no way around it. The man's a crook. And once he's out of office, whether it's now or 4 years from now, the man is going to go to jail. Because he's committed a lot of crimes. And he's also going to have to face those he owes money to. You know, because now that he's lost all this power he had, these people are going to say, you're not worth fooling around with anymore, and we want our money. And if we don't get it, we're going to make your life miserable. And so the rent's coming due, Mr. Trump. So there's that. Now, as you can see, the Orange Blossom Trail isn't really anything too spectacular. It's basically just what we call a 4-lane limited access highway that goes down the western part of Orlando. We are within the city limits right now. We've been for a while. When you first come down the trail, you're going through what we call suburb cities. I live in Apopka, and we go from Apopka down into Lockhart and into Pine Hills and eventually into Orlando. And I'll be in Orlando for the remainder of this run. And the building on the left is the new city police department. They built this a couple years ago. So the Popo is here. And, you know, really isn't that much to the trail. It's a bunch of businesses. There is a Amazon distribution center down here, kind of like a satellite distribution center. There's a big distribution center in the south end of town. This road ahead of me, and with the bridge going over the top, this is the 408. This is a road that goes east and west through the middle of Orlando and out to the one side goes out to the east side near the town of Bithlo, and it merges with Highway 50, which will take you over to the Space Coast on the east coast. And if you go west away from downtown Orlando, you eventually wind up hooking up to the turnpike if you took the road all the way. And a lot of people use this road for commuting back and forth to work. Depending on where they work at, they get off at the closest exit. So it's that kind of a road. And now this road here, this section of the trail, is an interesting one to go down at night, because this is our red light district. And actually, the red light district starts a little earlier than this, farther back. But But this section of the trail is where you'll usually, at night, and sometimes, surprisingly, during the day, you will find the ladies of the evening plying their trade, so to speak. They're out walking around saying, come get me, you want a date? That sort of thing. But, it's minimal because law enforcement keeps a tight grip on this area. It's heavily patrolled because it's a higher crime area of the city. And so they have a tendency to keep the prostitution trade under control. Now, to the right is the Amazon building that I was telling you about. The way I've got the phone pointed, you're not going to see a lot on the periphery. I've got it concentrated on the middle of the road. There might be times where I come down the trail and I turn the camera more to the right or turn the camera more to the left to kind of change things up a little bit as I go down this road. Now, on another subject, I've been watching the traffic of the conspiracy theorists from Minnesota and Arkansas, or Wisconsin. Not so much going on in Arkansas right now. And they're doing their usual ranting and raving, and they're the ones that seem to be most in support of Trump. And they're the ones that are saying he's going to pull this magical rabbit out of the hat. And that somehow that Trump is going to be in power for 4 more years. But it's these people that have the most at stake. Because if Trump is finally forced to concede and to give up the fight and plan on having a lot more time to play golf and do the things that retirees do, these people that are in the command or they're in this task force are going to have a problem. Their leader's gone. The man who thinks he's third in line to Donald Trump ain't going to have a third in line there anymore. He's not going to be third in line to President Biden. That's for certain. There's not going to be any task force under the Biden administration that's going to chummy up to QAnon. That never happened to begin with, but it certainly ain't going to happen now. If I were QAnon, I already had an idea what they have in mind. Well, I'm like, rather than give them ideas, I'm just going to keep it under wraps for now and see how this runs out. But it's pretty obvious what they're going to come up with. And it'll still involve Trump even when he leaves the presidency. It's not going to work. I mean, they've already lost a lot of credibility. Now that Trump has lost the election, their credibility is shot. QAnon was supposed to be there to do all these things to virtually assure that President Trump was going to remain President Trump. And they failed, and they failed miserably. And so now they have to come up with another spin. They're already trying to do it in my comment section. I love the Trump supporters and the TCA supporters that come into my chat or come into my comment section. They're fighting a losing battle. And even the cartoonist showed up. Now, there's this drunk, unemployed cartoonist that lives in a homeless shelter up in the Northwest. And he is desperate enough to come into my channel to beg for money. He does so by bringing in links to his YouTube channel where he advertises his cartoons. You know, you get t-shirts and stuff like that for $20 a pop, and so on and so forth, with these little cartoons that he creates through software he has his hands on. And because he doesn't like me because of my politics, he basically turned against me. Even though I was allowing him at one time to have free advertising on my channel. And when he violated my standards as a channel, I said, okay, you're not welcome here. You're going to have to go elsewhere. Don't advertise your product on my channel. Leave. And he refuses to leave. He's like one of these guys where the woman breaks up with you, says she wants nothing to do with you anymore, and you won't leave the woman alone. The guy has no self-respect. He is so desperate for money, for attention, that he comes in where he's not wanted. Now, I have told him repeatedly, stay off my channel. Quit advertising your crap, and you won't do it. So I reported him to YouTube, and I'm going to report him to YouTube every time he sticks a link in there. I'm reporting him for spam because that's exactly what he's doing. He's spamming my channel with his link. He's been told to stop it. He's been blocked, but he somehow gets around the block and posts the stuff anyway. Well, I ain't going to have it. And so, Bubba, the message is clear. Get the fuck off my channel and stay off. You got your own channel. Go over there and get on the air and ramble on about Trump all you want, but stay the hell off my channel. Grow up. Sober up and get yourself a goddamn job. You're not an invalid. You're just someone too lazy to work. So get to work. You know, this guy is typical of the extreme Trump supporters. They just can't take no for an answer. I have asked time and again for people that support Trump, if they can't respectfully debate, to stay the hell off my channel. I got this idiot who runs a fake newspaper up in Minnesota who insists on coming into my channel when I have told him to stay out. He's changed his name. Comes into the channel. I block him. He comes in again. He won't stay away. I don't understand why these crackpots are picking on this channel. I mean, they tell me I'm a failure. They tell me I'm nothing. They poke fun of the channel on their own websites. So why do they need to come into my channel? I don't get it. I mean, they could go out and they could live stream, they could do videos, they could do all kinds of things. But they waste their time trolling my channel. It's inevitable. If I have a live stream like I plan on doing on Tuesday, they'll be in there trolling my channel again. Because they have nothing else better to do. They backed a loser for our president. They backed a loser who runs around in a car full of junk. That is if he is still alive, at any rate. But they're losers backing losers. They're a bunch of crackpots. And they're becoming less and less visible as the days and weeks passed. Now, Timmy, the likely dead blogger and streamer, hasn't been heard of since May. The last confirmed photo of him alive that could be dated was taken in March at a boat show in front of yachts. After that, nothing. This fiction keeps coming up of him being on assignment, so on and so forth. That's malarkey. Instead, we got these fake Twitter accounts that come up with the usual QAnon nonsense and idiotic conspiracy theories of their own, because that's all they have. But like I said in the beginning of this presentation, and like I have said earlier, I'm starting to wind down because there's no point anymore. Nothing is changing, at least not immediately. I mean, there is a gradual decrease in their size. There's a gradual decrease in their influence, such as it was. And now, with a change of administration, their influence is going to be diminished that much further. The country is shifting back to the left again. Not all the way over to the left like the resistance wants, but it's getting back towards center and slightly less of center. The moderates, of which I am one, have won the day. They have thrown the extremists out. And I think that you're going to find in 2022 is anyone that's on the extremes are going to be out of a job. It's going to move back to center. And hopefully we can function as a country again. Instead of being stuck in this morass of false narratives and conspiracy theories and hate blogs and hate YouTube channels and so on and so forth. And we can go back to doing different things. This turn right now, I'm going to be going off the trail and on the way to the airport. I tried, oh boy, to sneeze. We'll see what happens. Because if necessary, I can cut the mic off and sneeze, and you won't know that I sneeze. It will get quiet. But I don't like sneezing on the air. Try to avoid it. Now, this intersection here at Sand Lake Road and the trail is a long light. And it's usually better than a minute. I'm not sure. I didn't time it, so I don't know what it was today. But it's pretty active. But anyway. But we're getting close to the closing minutes here as I head towards the airport. Now, what I'm probably going to do after today is I would cut the video off at that intersection. Because I would be getting things in order, getting ready to go to the airport, which I'm fairly close to now. But I figured today I would take you on the majority of the journey to the airport so that you could see how I go about getting there. About another 10 minutes or so. I'm running pretty well on schedule. As long as I'm wheels up by noon, I'm in pretty good shape. And that's the schedule today, is somewhere around noon I will be wheels up. Now we got a lot of people going to motorcycle school today. A guy runs a little motorcycle school in the parking lot of a shopping center. It's Target and everything here, and they learn how to maneuver their motorcycles and stuff, because in Florida to get a motorcycle license you have to take a little test. And it's usually you circle to the left, you circle to the right, you do a figure eight, and a few other things to show that you can control a motorcycle. Pretty basic stuff. Back when I got my motorcycle endorsement on my license, it was grandfathered in, and I didn't have to take the road test because I've owned motorcycles most of my life. I may not ride them as often as I like, but I own them. And now, one of the times when I go out on my road trips, it'll be on the motorcycle. So this is one of the things I'm going to start doing this year. Is I'm going to start doing different things to webcast. And one of the things I'm going to do is I will be streaming, or at least making videos, while riding my motorcycle. And so there'll be that. But that's one of the changes that's coming to this channel, is I'm going to go back a little bit to my original plan. I'm also going to be doing something called Murt's Old School, or Murt Goes Old School. I'm kind of thinking out the title, but I think it's going to be Murt Goes Old School by the time the dust settles. And what that's going to be is I'm going to go through vintage technology, the things that I've used over the years to photography, being online, so on and so forth. Because I have kept most of the things that I own through the years. And, you know, when I upgrade to a new computer, I keep the old one. And so I've got computers going back 25 years. I've got one of the first computers that I ever owned. And I've also got what one might consider my first portable computer, which really wasn't all that portable, but it worked. And so I'll be demonstrating those. I'll actually use them where possible online to show what these computers were capable of and what they might be capable of today with a little adapting. I may not be able to live stream with a webcam or stuff like that on some of the old ones, but there's a lot I can do with them. Because I believe in cross-purposing technology. I did that with the live truck. I cross-purposed the live truck when I was covering the Anthony case. And I'm going to be cross-purposing technology to do other things. And I'm going to demonstrate that, because this was the original intent of this channel, was to discuss a variety of things. And there was a lot of technology in there. Now, there's a lot of launches coming up over at the Cape. And so I'll be going back over there a couple times to cover those launches. And I'll also be doing things around the state of Florida that's a little bit different. Yes, I may cover a few cases like I had talked about before, but I'm also going to be going into more general topics, such as what's to see and do down here in Central Florida, some of the things that are happening down here, and more of a broad-based spectrum that I plan on covering on this channel. And because of that, QAnon, Donald J. Trump, the task forces and the high commands and all this other nonsense, they're going to take a back seat. You know, they may pop up from time to time, but not very often, and not that much attention is going to be paid to them. I expect that when I do my live streams that, you know, somebody's going to steer the conversation in the chat that way or what have you, because it's still on people's mind, but it's going to get diminished because there are others that have taken up the reins of the fight, and they're the ones that are going to continue it. And I'm going to go back to what I intended to do here. Now, I may lose a bunch of subscribers because I don't know how many people that want to see someone parading around town on a motorcycle or some of the other things that I have in mind, but, you know, maybe some replacements will come along to take take those people, and maybe that'll nudge me into the 1,000 subscriber mark. I don't know. But I look at it this way. This is my channel. I'm going to run it the way I want to run it. And if people don't like what I put on here, then that's my tough luck. I just keep trudging away with what few people watch the channel and hope for the best. And we go on one day at a time, one trip down the trail at a time. Now we're almost to the airport. I take this way because I like to avoid the tolls. I'm a cheapskate. It costs to come back and forth to the airport is $6 each way in tolls. That's $12 to go roughly 40 miles. And if I take the turnpike, it cuts the trip by about 15 minutes. Now I don't think 15 minutes is worth $6. So unless I'm in a hurry and I need to be either at the airport or home quickly, I don't take the turnpike. I take the trail. It's the fastest way to get between Apopka and the airport. So we'll see. And this is a shortcut everybody uses. And it's also one of my destinations. Because depending on where I'm going and who I'm going with, I'll either stop right here at this corner, because this is where the plane is that I fly out on, or as today, I go to the airport because I'm going commercial. So we take this little back alley here. Over to airport. I believe this, I don't know if they still call this thing Tradeport Drive or what they call it now, but it's basically just a shortcut. There's the road to the left is the 528. You can take that road up and you can go to the airport that way. But, you know, that's an extra $1.25 if you go that way. You know, you pay $1.25 to go 2.5 miles, and you're not saving any time. You know, in the end, I think you save maybe 5 minutes of that. You know, so the only reason to go that way is if you're running behind and you really need to get to the airport in a hurry. And I plan my trip down here to the point where I'm not losing that much time. This building on the right used to be the Orlando airport. It's now a parking lot for rental cars and other things, largely not even used. And so that's how much the airport has changed over the years. And there's still a lot going on. One of these days when I got time, I'm going to do a little sightseeing tour of the airport, show you some of the new things that are going on down here for those that might be interested. And as I round the corner, this is where the rideshare guys park when they're waiting for their turn to go up to the airport. And it's nicknamed the Uber lot because Uber's the dominant rideshare in here, although Lyft is in here, and one other rideshare I think has started up in Orlando. This metal thing to the right is a jet blast deflector, because they use it if they start up the aircraft and he makes a turn and they're winding up the motors, they don't blow people off the road or blow crap in the way, so they put this thing up. You know, it kind of protects us. It kind of takes away the view of the parking lot where all the airplanes are parked, but, you know, it saves us from getting a blast of air from these airplanes. And then, you know, people like JetBlue, they do their maintenance. And this is generally a commercial area of the airport. The catering company that takes food out to the airplanes is over here, and there are some courier services that are over here, because this is the aircraft cargo complex. All your cargo carriers are in here. And there's some operations for the airport that are in here. So that's, that's basically what you have. Yeah, it's 56 minutes. It actually took me close to an hour to get down here. Now I might, some of this is going to be trimmed out. And this will probably be the longest I ever do this. It's like I said, I'll probably cut the video off a lot earlier. But I just wanted, number one, I wanted to show you how long it takes me to get down here. And to give you an idea of what it's like to drive every day on this stretch of roadway in Florida. Now we sit here, we got one last light. Now I normally park in this parking lot off to the left, but they've closed it for the time being, so I'm having to go over to another parking lot. And that's what I'm doing now. I go over to the parking lot and park my car. And so we'll be doing that shortly. Basically the last leg of the trip. Alrighty. Sometimes when I come to the airport, I'm not going to do it today because I'm running early, or late actually, is I will park in the cell phone parking lot. And I usually wait there for about 10 or 15 minutes for the call for me to go ahead and come in and park, because this way, the less time I park in the airport, the less it costs me. Although 70% of the time, my parking fees are paid for me. So, kind of a perk as to what I'm doing. So, okay. Covering a mask and blah, 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 blah. The thing I hate about coming to the airport and going out is I have to listen to the mayor give his speech going each way, both coming to and from the terminal. Because he gives us a little speech on the train. After a while, it gets old. It's kind of like watching, it's Groundhog Day on the passenger tram. Ugh. Alright. So now I merge because I got to go over to the B side. But I hope this first presentation wasn't too boring. And those of you that hung around long enough to listen to it. But this is what I'll be doing for the time being to see if this little experiment works. Because what I'm trying to do is, number one, I'm trying to come up with a different way of doing my recording. Because before I used to do the recording and then put the visuals on, to just doing the recording and the visuals all at once. And also to come up with something for you guys to look at if you feel like staring at the screen, other than an airplane wing, which has been the format of my other video, because it takes time. When I used to do the videos where I had something of a slide presentation, it took forever to do it. And so this way I figured, well, I'll try something different. So anyway, to end this video, this is William K. Murt, Murt Witness 1. Please like, subscribe, share, and be sure to hit that notification so that you get updates as to what else is coming up. So until the next time, this is William K. Murt, Murt Witness 1. Have a good one.